Before we begin, I've had sort of a cough for the last week. If I start coughing during the AC, is it okay if I pause time for a second and finish, then move on?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. Great, everyone good?
Yeah.
Planned Republic of India is the Indian Islamic Republic of Pakistan who eliminated nuclear arsenals to core the core at Ulain 18. And security climate such as South Asia, the solution seems to be completely abolishing nuclear weapons and disarmament is the only effective way to ensure that non-use of nuclear weapons is critical to both New Delhi and Islamabad sign a non-discriminatory nuclear restraining regime is essential to establish nuclear confidence building measures and non-control agreement that should be encouraged in Indo-Pak war escalation of nuclear only elimination of arsenal strikes for first preemptive counter-force striking. India would do it despite NFU, but Pakistan considers it to this Act 19. Indian defense men know that India's inherited adhere to NFU, but the future depends on circumstances and India's counter-force capability would give the option to target Pakistan's nuclear forces and India building more accurate missile system, larger numbers, also improving its ability to monitor Pakistan's nuclear force and capabilities have given way to temptation. If we could destroy Pakistan's entire nuclear arsenal in one fell swoop, our rule it preemptive strike. Indian officials have been arguing for greater flexibility in its nuclear doctrine. Both India and Pakistan have more incentives to go first and go massively, and second is aggression to unbalanced and uncertainty arms race. International actors can't check this. McDonald 19. A suicide car bombing. India retaliated this week with airstrikes deep within Pakistan. Was their first use of air power. One nuclear armed power into another. These are uncharted waters. Western countries are preoccupied as crisis that combats two new and unpredictable elements. Willingness to raise the stakes in India by Western countries to intervene in equilibrium is now to severe Modi to sanctions and restraint no longer with tolerating attack. Pakistan can no longer assume weapons protected from India retaliation. The U.S. has lost its credibility allowed it in previous crises. China relations are far more for Britain consumed by Brexit. The U.S. is seeking Pakistani support for a peace deal with the Taliban, limiting its willingness to put pressure on Islamabad. Pakistan developing battlefield nuclear missiles. The development lowers the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons. Pakistan government is struggling to stabilize the economy. And third is terrorism. Major retaliatory strikes for online nationalism. Pakistan's inability to counter the Indian army makes nuclear escalation inevitable. That's Ayub 18. Attacks provided justification for India's nationalists putting pressure on Indian military response. Indian retaliatory attacks have targeted not only terrorist bases, also Pakistani military facilities. Escalation and terror attacks made the situation very perilous. Delhi's ready to launch major retaliatory attacks against targets in Pakistan. Daesh terrorists attacked an Indian military camp. The Indian army destroyed a Pakistani army post. If is reaching dangerous proportions, the Pakistani military cannot continue to adapt Indian attacks in India's right will push the Pakistani military to retaliate and force Pakistan unable to counter superior Indian conventional forces to resort to battlefield nuclear weapons. India will massively retaliate and forth this perception. Pakistani believes that India will force strike India overconfidence triggers escalation, thus clearing the rank 19. Modi declared India was preparing to launch a conventional missile strike. South Asia was stepping out the nuclear ladder. India alleges Pakistan continued to support terrorist groups that have killed tens of thousands of Indian civilians. Pakistan emphasized ability and willingness to use nuclear weapons on the battlefield to restrict India's superior armed forces. India has access to radar imagery and can target much of Pakistan with land and sea-based cruise missiles. India is unlikely to have the capability to storm Pakistan near to medium term. Its mere essential capabilities likely to accelerate arms race. The possibility of it storming strike might engender Pakistan early consideration of a first strike. Indian overconfidence may lead it to execute a counter-force strike even if it cannot fit its nuclear submarine strategic ambiguity. Weak communication and evolution of command exponentially increases the risk of miscalculations. Only 18. Pakistan's decision to add nuclear weapons to its Navy's direct response to India's nuclear try nuclear submarines can increase the risk of the war controlled by jittery and paranoid officers. Pakistan has fired a submarine launched nuclear warhead, putting news to sea weakens the chain of command, which means the risk of accidental nuclear war increases exponentially as sea warheads and missiles have already been assembled. Communications are one way the submarines down, so almost impossible to detect nuclear submarines. The advantage of being able to survive a nuclear strike and launch a devastating second strike. And once the first nuclear launch, it would be impossible for either side to de-escalate. Each side would attempt to unleash its entire arsenal on the other's population center. And nuclear war between India and Pakistan destroys the world. This Johnson 19. Nuclear explosion bursts last area 36 million tons of so will block at 30% of the year's sunlight, 5 degrees of cooling, decrease rainfall by 30% globally. India and China precipitation would drop to 0. United States decline of 50%. India and Pakistan could suffer 125 million fatalities. Temperature declining to the last ice age and mass starvation. That leads to extinction. The world nuclear war fallout creates ice age and mass starvation. Star 15. Or nuclear weapons would be a mass extinction. Event extinction is an event of utter finale from the user be cool too cold and dark to grow food. And radioactive fallout would poison the biosphere. Millions of tons of smoke would destroy the ozone layer and block sunlight, creating ice age for decades. And virtually any nuclear war would leave the earth uninhabitable. Skip the next impact card. And the advantage too is terror. High probability of nuclear terrorism. Pakistan and past attacks in the insider help prove that should be 17. Catastrophic acquisition of nuclear weapons by a terrorist organization with the active help of insiders. An attack was led by Pakistani Navy officers. 4-person were killed associated with Al Qaeda. Former Pakistani Navy Lieutenant Jakrai has been dismissed from the Navy for harboring extremist views. The group was led by a senior officer who had appreciation of onboard procedures and offshore development. EQIS released the design sketch of the PNS Sulpo Fire Force serving commanders who were arrested trying to flee. There was a large Al Qaeda module operating with the Pakistani Navy commanders. They could be more operating with the Pakistani Army and Air Force. And during a crisis with India, few insiders would be tasked to transfer tactical weapons to the front line. The insider terrorists and most dangerous, incredible threat to Pakistan's arsenal and Indian nuclear terrorism is possible to previous threats and low security allow even attempt to escalate this cycle in 16. India is susceptible to a terrorist attack on a nuclear facility. The theft of nuclear materials to create a bomb. ISIS expressed a large interest in large-scale acts of terror using weapons of mass destruction. South Asia is exceptionally vulnerable to a terrorist attack on a nuclear facility. Barkham Mumbai houses India's weapon-grade plutonium and Marlborough weapons constitute aggression like in the 2002-2008 crisis. Rapidly escalating terror suspects in connection with Mumbai involving confessed recruitment of IS to gather reconnaissance on Bark. And India thwarted a military attack on a facility at Bark. 2008 Mumbai attacks concluded reconnaissance of Bark, and media reports have confirmed incidents of stolen uranium in 94, 98, 2001, and 08. And terrorists getting detonated nuclear weapons. They have the means, motive, and opportunity most recent predictive evidence that takes into account technological advances proves extinction. That's Toby 19. Sabotage of nuclear facilities, dispersal of the dirty bomb remains a very real risk. Motive apocalyptic visions of Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State televised this atrocity means there are repeated cases of seizure. HE European Economic Security Assessment can reveal vulnerability. Seems to have heavily armed, well-trained attacker insider conspiracy opportunities, such as stopping a device being brought into remains very challenging. Rapid and clandestine radicalization of insiders continue to present and threaten. New technologies such as drones, cyber, small and nuclear weapons, and bulk processing facilities offer new opportunities for terrorism. The future is highly uncertain. The threat of nuclear weapons could increase on framework. The standard is maximizing expected well-being. Escape for debates about nuclear arsenals. Seshadi 4. Nuclear policy, because of complex factual issues, a number of persons have factory present to be handled, and consequential is termed nearly down to the logical discussion to integrate factual issues of probability such as chances of accidents, much times the real historical and political consequences of deterrence, proliferation, and alternatives to the arms race. This outweighs on 8-point predictability. Most authors assume U2 when discussing deterrence dynamics or proliferation, and B-point topic education of the frameworks don't engage with key questions of nuclear policy, which is key since we only have a few tournaments left on or prefer. Additionally, one is actor specificity, 8-point aggregation. If your policy benefits someone harms other, which also means side constraints frees action. B-point no act mission distinction, choosing to omit is an act, and if it self-governs decide not to act, which means being presented with the app creates a choice between two actions, either of which is an omission. And C-point no intent foresight distinction. If we foresee a consequence that becomes part of our deliberation based intrinsic to our action, and it's a lexical prerequisite. Threats of bodily security preclude the ability for moral actors to effectively act upon other moral theories, since they are in a constant state of crisis. Then him is the ideal moral conditions which other theories presuppose. On the underview, and one of your 3-point advocates say otherwise, then that can be infinitely abusive and disrupt the debate of one of your too short for theory and substance.
Substance?
Yeah, I got the card on the word substance on the underview. And I didn't read the last impact card, which was Tune 19.
Ready?
Yeah.
The one he sees described a problem in the world. What is the one he sees relationship to that problem?
What do you mean? Like,
Question is
what is my personal relationship or the affirmative's text relationship? What do you mean by its relationship? Sure. The affirmative's relationship gets scholars who are directly affected by the Indo-Pak conflict to express their opinions through research articles, etc. My relationship to the advantages.
Why is that good?
What?
Why is that good?
We think it is good to address problems where individuals are suffering in the world and try to accrue solutions.
So you read the app. Why just not? We address the problems. Why not vote negative?
What?
You read
because
the app.
debate's a competitive activity.
Wait, but you said the reason was we have to address the problems. We've addressed the problems.
Well, that's the reason writing about Indo-Pak and trying to find a solution is good. The reason I'm reading the affirmative is because we are in a debate round, which is the game that I want to win.
What? Who's a terrorist?
What?
Well, who's a terrorist?
We wouldn't provide a precise definition,
well,
but we
authors would, so I'd like you to.
Sure, we would say nuclear terrorism within Pakistan includes individuals who, I can find a definition for you for the next speech.
I would like it right now.
Sure, nuclear terrorism is when.
I just want terrorism.
Sir, a radical group that tries to cause mass suffering for the purpose of terror.
Mass suffering, the purpose of terror. What's suffering?
What?
What is suffering?
An increase in pain and a decrease in pleasure.
Universally?
What?
Universally?
Like, util would indicate so.
Okay, the Shaw evidence says that we need to focus on these major conflicts. What is the warrant in the evidence for why it has to be this round?
What we indicate that anything else is unpredictable and destroys core topic education because the majority of literature, it is a TGF.
And why is that good?
What we indicate that we should be focusing on what is most fair and educational when determining what is a good proxy for how we should evaluate arguments in debate.
Okay, cool. Talmadge, or actually you didn't read Talmadge. The mission distinction, how many headaches equals a migraine?
What? Obviously we can't provide, I can't provide an exact figure. Why would I need to provide an exact figure?
So we can learn to weigh.
What?
How do we weigh?
What choosing acquisition distinction talks about how if I
overall with your framework.
What?
Overall with your framework.
We would say we can aggregate pain and pleasure. We would say 3 people dying is worse than 2 people dying. Just because I can't tell you exactly how many headaches equals a migraine doesn't necessarily mean that we can't determine what is worse than when certain things are worse than other things.
Okay, I guess. Who determines what is worse then? Like, who are we acting on in the position of the affirmative?
The aggregation of pain and pleasure. Nobody is determining.
Okay, so wait. So
there's no moral authority who says X amount of pain is worse than X amount of pleasure. We would say things like phenomenal introspection and other things, even though I didn't read that, can indicate that things cause certain quantities of pain and pleasure.
3 case the order is the advantage.
Sounds good.
Everyone good?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Now I'm good.
Okay, cool. Ready? Here we go.
Black life is lived in a white reality, established itself through the facts of the Constitution of anti-black lines in relation to the physical and virtual plane. As such, debate drills renders black bodies functional to the service of information dissuasion, the communicative form of the one he sees, complicit in establishing a dissonance that intensifies black psychic derangement jealousy. As 17 black lives, a white fiction constitutes itself as the path of start the real to psychic derangement, the premise black death being assumed by the simulation of every alien kind of red. Deals of black death is open the possibility of liberal justice for metric trauma, the black cementation of death over and over, white Disneyland stays. In text, white being continues into black death, the matrix of possibility of real structure live. To deny specter of death, to follows it ever. If blackness isn't lived in hyper intensification, as the next white being a little bit blood soaks and blood chain extend over the train of what might happen. And black death become weaponized to limit the extension of white being. And debate is structured by an arch of redemption built around the axis of black subjugation. The one hasty response to resolution question prefigures ardent protocols like Greta Kramer suffering that repetitiously destroys black being this wilderness. And 16 the power pros the questions grows higher the question posed in debate, the question posed on arch of redemption is an instant of the planet to the equilibrium disequilibrium, the third movement of tripart arc of redemption is the mood of redemption, the vertical structure of debate, and debate, the protocols are ideologically in order black. As every new part of the question have to go through structures from the like the suffering of some of the groups. I cannot tell the story before invasion and think about the structure without they have the repetition as opposed to redemption. And the affirmative theory of IR presumes a sovereign subject whose existence relies upon colonized zones of gratuitous vines and property formation. In other words, the subject of IR theory depends on asymmetrical segregated order of nation states. As Agatha Angelo, 11 IR is a presumed subject to be ontological European normative imperial order of saving humanists and zones of civil spaces, security for sovereign and property relation for condition gratuitous vines of colonized zones. Second spaces taken by force accumulating life and all it itself is taken for secure third manipulation, enforcing the right to life in a radical individual, authorized anti-politics and economies, enforcing the right to liberal life, death by deploying practice of destruction and emergence of the international war. Makes it possible to war is crucial. The rational war and stabilization is in the freedom of the individual. The process of world ignore and the colonial violence contains individuality. The soldiers maintain the compact. The rifle, the only way out of a world struck anti-blackness is an end to the white world. As if we are engaging in war, the resistance needs to be an unspoken dynamic. That's jealousy. As if we are engaging in war, symbolic resistance to be an unspoken dynamic. War always go. The non-uniqueness of death, only to our transfer. One doesn't go to seeing its value, distinguishing itself with the layers of the death and ring and slows. The extermination we are extending white hair real. Some of the age of terms of affection, slavery reaches its horizon. Undocumented immigrants, prison mobilization, the regenocide, disregard for the apocalypse, back to transfigure the symbolic significance that deals with the white beings. A possibility for zero transformation of blackness. Let us be moral and the role of the ballot is operating in actional educating spaces like debate or recur in the forms of black states. Also, friends of blackness and work to shape and to back in consciousness as sharp and 16. The world beats in the cost of martial metaphors, language of and something logical, the woman is holds a shape to save is to change trades for sight. Also, friends of metaphors like shapes to success, struggle, sacrifice, and surveillance, and community narrative, the function of the curriculum, the structure, and consciousness, and certain behaviors after these curricular activities, and conscious education, the relationship, and next law. This is the stick up that's 113.2. There was on the population of the university to be used as hospitality and over the work and subverted where the revelation is back to strong piece of future people call them uncorrectable name. Even professional goes hands on color comments that there's a criminal act. Well known base teaching organization, local negligence, other professionalization, under comments is always unsafe to but the civil force cannot reduce itself. Unless in the university may harbor refugees, fugitives, renegades, castaways, precaution by taking the necessary regulation, possibility criminal, making future duty, the labor requires under comments and rules, always at wars, always high next. Often we are in the midst of race war, debate shows us that Finland aligned themselves to the military revolution, the 1AC hesitation, and the race wars voting issue first survival. Debate is not a safe stage from debaters, calling the cops on black students and like music on label, killing the debaters and cheating by publishing scholarship and journals, reading debaters don't speak clear where they stand, and the resource psychology basic and navigate hostile spaces from these vines and always, and the other impacts and assumes the ability to access debate is free, frontside disclosures, kingdom lining on some rabbit text, and circumvent raid, racial bonds and rabbit coalitions and enemies case. The app's wrong about everything that's printed in L2K. But attacks of our political results, even robust journalization because states have been attacked to have been closed. It's impossible to discern relevant variables, polarity, and balance of our underwear. Equals that there's no division hypothesis. There's too much room to be tested. Deterrence of government size, arbitrary theories for idealization, rational act, and the balance of our do not exist for a definition. So it is all we find possible. To find large enough samples, variation across time, and complex and likely to show no localization, made over comparisons of the city. Their watershed moment was 11 months ago. No reason as belief. That means their evidence is not unique. And don't drop me, please. That's Antonio. 95 persons over to individualization, engage in growth fabrication. Advance and there was over simulating effective role players, addition of associate appropriate mask and reduced hypothesized simulation is a safe and protocol page in a new article now. Believe is added for attendance circumstances and role attainment that the combination of this conforming was on my doing for Tepatara and you could orbit any impacts that can't cause extinction. The only other warning countries are drawn, but other countries get drawn. The conventional conflict could also cause extinction because countries' retaliate and impact conflict, eventual war with the extended impact, war doesn't have economics, radical and global community checks that some year. 18 international community to sustain Pakistan, releasing in India, Highland tensions, these Pakistan on board adventures given the zone crisis, the country's fate, and the devaluation and currency burning of foreign exchange rules, attacking its own sanction, attacking India paramilitary power, Pakistan partially reopens airspace east into India, takes its heel and enemies face the further pressure. Pakistan is home to the PCC. The PCCs and China US will use their horrendous escalation shell. Holding the line of controls happen to be used in a single escalation mode. And even not taking the Pakistani rhetoric will not take any military action. The conflict's inevitable nukes are key. India, Pakistan shift to other methods. None of their internal links are compared to a world without nukes. Eliminating means to shoot the app cause a global war. That's my court of appeals. As it norms and call it a dictionary to define eliminate to get rid of it. An appeal and understood as eliminate meaning she got shot and killed. It doesn't escalate to a nuclear crisis. Will you reinsert this highlands when you see crosses? 19 and terror doesn't escalate. There was 2 years and also linear terror attacks. And that doesn't cause war intentions between India, Pakistan, and plateaued India. And there's Pakistan and failure to engage in even further main conflict unlikely to come body. As like 17 in India, as varying towards the constants that LAC does not want to contribute access until the Indian government to conclude escalation could have been self-defeat this. It's also generally the conviction that Pakistan is seeking to decline the state. Albania Pakistan will consider a greater threat to Indian security tensions to have plateaued in Pakistani subs good. There's the second strike capability. The India first strike can't hit that deters war. No reason why Pakistan have a defensive capability leads. But that also independently answers that Pakistan use it or lose it. Because sub enables security second strike. That's why they're at 1AC of the 18 islands to the highline. No sub accidents. No a single incident is by crash near Taiwan. No. And next, no India first strike. Their evidence. 1AC clear and ring 18 islands to the highline and no extinction at any point on their star evidence is Russian U.S. nuclear arsenals. Here's a screenshot from the slide. Other sources, no link to the app. And B. Johnson has just signed the 219 set. Assumes twice as many nukes. Now the concludes that we kill at most 125 million. We reinsert this highlighting and we're resigned by the technical rewiring everything. Will you buy? And here does they do a charter means of escape. That's Croker. A 14 bind data second technologies, the acceleration, she's a fast transition, material history, data stream, works of interpretation, the sub destabilizing humans and term, demilitarization, hyper, exerted by digital media into network society, found a social culture, just series of culture due to social and economic compulsion, sources that polarize captivating radiation technologies, putting utopian views of the visions of a transcendent complex reality of imminent product of human condition and technology drive towards mastery. These found what will representing great metaphysical rebellious strategies that word aimed direct things and then logics behind eliminating capabilities, real reasonings and feature machine warfare in the media, all the hardware and software war on psychology, subject to the affects of politics, and strategies in military connected covering data analytics and social media to reduce individual to data points, politics, the psychological war for the future economy has been coming closer to critical system, relentless drive of violence, a pure market obstruction, subject to the computational modes of simulation, rational expands you. My experience was that the crush of an acceleration of the body of an act of blood, although was polished and blood, recalibrated, redesigned, and relaunched, and become lonely satellite, second, the new discovered planet, of the region of consciousness, that the will technology turns back on, so cut the card there, no enforcement or verification, causes cheating and water, and only proposals and triggers make group their miscalculated rhetoric solve, the body of these anti-Palestine rhetoric and shows there's still structural wells against military action countries, or we have task code for its incentive to maintain nukes that turns the up.
Sure. Cross?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Do you want to mark doc?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
What's the alternative for the first off?
There's many parts of it. Would you like me to explain them all?
Sure.
First one is you losing. The second thing is it forwards a orientation towards the world that we think is inherently good, which also not only disproves the orientation, but is a notion. It's also a refusal of vitalism and political simulations like the one we see. It is also things like Toussaint and setting fire to French soldiers, Baltimore riots.
Do you fiat things like setting fire to French, like?
Well, that's an example of the alternative. It's rather an orientation to the round.
To what extent do you fiat that orientation?
We don't. We think fiat is bad.
Wait, so then who adopts the orientation?
It's an orientation in the round that we think if the judges think is a good idea, they should vote for it.
So wait, the judges voting on this critique in one round is going to change their orientation of how they perceive.
So it's not a critique. Okay, so I feel like it's a critique as a verb. It's a constant criticism of the process of how we relate to things.
Whatever you want to call it, I'm unclear as how you garner any impact from this when the judges mark their ballot. What?
Okay, so if they mark their ballot and nothing happens, that probably means nothing happens. The AF votes AF. You vote negative presumption. I'm okay with that. I mean, that's the argument we were saying is that.
How do you generate offense from your second off?
What do you mean?
Your second off. How do you generate? Why is this a reason why I lose?
We have indicted. Well, one. We have indicted multiple things of the 1AC. I can explain those if you'd like.
In the second off, explain what the text, like what the card in the second off
indicts.
Yeah, so
Motion Harney problematized a few things. First is the idea of debt and credit. The idea that since you read the affirmative, you should get credit for it. The second thing is that Motion Harney problematized the relationship towards the academy. Our argument via Motion Harney is the only ethical relation that we can have to the university is one of fugitivity.
Sure. How, when you read case turns and stuff, how do you not link?
What? Wait.
you read things like rearm, no war, etc. How do you, like, if you apply these case terms to the NC, how are you not taking credit for scholarship that others have written about India and Pakistan?
I guess that puts you in a double bind. Either the case terms are true and the judges can vote negative, or the counter plan is true and you can vote negative there.
Okay.
It's a question of our orientation towards the space.
Wait, is the second off a counter advocacy?
Yes.
Sure. What's the status of the alt in the second off?
What do you want it to be?
Unconditional.
It'll be dispo perm offense.
Dispo with pro offense. Fantastic. What would I have to spec in the AC to meet your third shell?
Which side of the race war you're on?
Sure. Could you explain your Antonio 95 evidence?
We have problematized the 1AC as a technocratic relationship to debate. We say that the role of the policymaker is not only inherently depressive, but causes a ton of negative impacts that I can explain in cross-sec and prep if you like.
Sure. Prep starts now. Also in prep, what are the links to the affirmative in the first critique?
The Wilderson evidence and the Agatha and Toilet.
Could you list off your links?
I just did.
Okay, sure.
Wait, is that not what you want?
No, it's fine.
Did you start a timer?
Yeah. $12 seconds left. I'll send the doc. Actually, there's not going to be cards.
you send off, so.
What? Sure. There's probably going to be analytics that aren't necessarily in the doc that I'll read if I glaze through them. Can Also, does anyone know if there's an outlet near, like, by here? There's one right there? Great, thanks. Oh, no.
Do you want cough drops?
What? No, thank you. I'm fine. That's unfortunate. I left my charger in the other room. Okay.
Wait, do you use Type C?
What?
Do you use
It's a
Type-
razor. It has its own
Oh,
like.
You can go grab it quick if you'd like.
It says I have 12 minutes remaining. During 2 hour crowd, I'll grab it.
Alright, what's the order?
Order's gonna be case, K, the second off, and then actually sorry no, shell, case, K, and then their second off.
Can you also send the intro because you did not
The inter?
for the shell?
Oh, sorry, the shell. Your shell.
Oh. I'm bleeding right now.
So,
Perin?
enough case for something, huh?
Yeah.
Where's your charger? What room?
The room we were in was it 1,
Yeah,
2
okay.
something.
Do you want napkins?
That's fine. Bleed out.
All right.
Just to confirm, AF312.
3 AF 1 2.
3 AF1.
The procedural goes on top.
Oh, okay.
Let me know when everyone is good. Room good?
I'm good.
Counterinterpretation, the affirmative doesn't have to specify their side on the race war. If it's not made by the resolution, when no abuse in turn of normal use checks, they can provide a definition within this NC. The same way to link to the dissent, which is better because it prevents the F1 word specifying a definition that is advantage the negative into F ground. They incentivize small packs out of what they actually skip that, and there's no abuse actually skip that as well. On the overview to the argument, spec is infinitely regressive. There's no bright line for when we stop specking thing, which causes subsequent crowd to prevent decision making. It means you should reject the interpret cross-section flex pistols all your offense. You can just ask me spec at the start of the cross-section, get your links, and there's no resolution, no basis. I defend exactly what the topic asks. That is the most predictable interpretation. The vast majority of their offense is garnering what side of the race war DebateDrills stands on, but I am not representative of DebateDrills, so they can't garner any offense from me answering that question on the case. Impact tensions and border skirmishes escalate to conventional wars and airstrikes can result in nuclear war and extinction plans, so by eliminating the case on the line by line on their Antonio card. 1, we aren't spectators, we can do anything, we can do stuff about suffering. That's framework. The plan is just an opinion on what India and Pakistan should do. We're not asked to swing obligation. For instance, you can say police ought not commit brutality without role-playing as the police. Now on the rest of the line by line, they say no aggression because the watershed moment was 11 months ago, but that watershed moment has been escalating with various forms of violence that are going to trigger nuclear war. That was all of the analysis coming out of the A1AC, and they say no nuclear nuclear war because of drawn, but our evidence explicitly indicates the firestorms on massive cities caused by the nuclear escalation between India and Pakistan destroy agricultural yield, which leads to extinction. They say no escalation because of backlash, but we explain why international powers aren't going to backlash because they're preoccupied with other crises. They say there's a shift to other weapons. This is the blippiest argument you have ever seen. There's no warrant for what they shift to and no impact to the shift. And they say eliminate is to super prioritize spirit over text because prioritizing exact text to textual precision destroys norming because we prioritize semantic correctness over what's actually good norm for the community, creates the race to the top that precludes non-perfect English speakers. And they say counterforce is hypothetical, but that is exactly the point. Our evidence doesn't. Our evidence assumes that counterforce doesn't exist yet because it doesn't. Our point is that it's coming soon. They say terror, but terror is not the scenario. I'm going. They say no terror. I'll concede that I'm not going for terror. They say tensions have plateaued, but that was from 2017. There have been airstrike since, which empirically denies that. They say subs deter, but our whole point is that Indian is overconfident. Subs mean that they're going to fire back because of counterforcing, and they say no first strike apply that same counterforcing logic and all their Croker satellite cade. There's no warrant as to why the app is technocratic, and there's no explanation as to why the alternative. There's first of all no alternative or counter advocacy. There's no explanation as to why the NC doesn't abide by that same technocracy. Now on the critique. Framed with invasion center on the consequences of the plan. First class, the resolution is the only predictable locus of offense. Their interval less size step clash rather than engaging the 1AC, which devolves to competing monologues and precludes any benefit debate. Second, fairness, refusing us to feel allows the negative to share the grounds for what offense is unpredictable and fair. And on judge choice, the judge should endorse the single best reason to vote the affirmative win to defend links to the level strategically shutting in the 1 error and errors clash by the 2 error for deeper discussion. Otherwise, the app has to win every advantage and identifies the shot 2 errors that overwhelm the 2 error will be defense and prioritize form over content. Content over form over content is a false choice. Obviously, the form is important, but the content can be used to change the impacts of the form by using objectivity against itself to change the way the research and methods of debate operates. That was above. In all the satellite case that I may have missed, you need to have a very clear link for what they entail for them to draw from the NC the 2 or multiple satellite case supercharge a link to framework only using the plan as a stable metric as a leverage offense prevents us from having to answer a ton of different satellite case on the links proper to sorry. I'm still going.
Yeah, no, I was just saying.
Their alt is wrong. The alt cannot resolve that it doesn't change any impacts in the government is the source of it, which means it's necessary to engage on that terrain to improve health all causing the alt, which also a fatalistic all or nothing frame, which is bad because it says we shouldn't take action unless 100% of progress is possible. The alt is genocidal. They need to win alt solvency because they're non-UDK. They can't solve their links. And on the on the stick up they link with all. Also permutation do the critique, and they link to all of their stick-up offense through the fact that they are engaging the same sort in the same sort of debt assumption. They make case throws and arguments against the 1AR.
Ready?
Yeah.
I'll ask a question right away.
Sure.
Reasons for rejecting.
None.
Cool.
Also, would you mind keeping your prep? I forgot to start a timer.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Did I grab
Thanks.
the right
Oh yeah, that's the right one. Thank you so much.
By the way, it's your camera stat.
What?
Your camera did die.
Yeah.
Mine's alive, though, so it's fine.
Oh, my camera died? Oh, oof. Okay.
You can move my back if you need to.
Oh, perfect.
Which scenario did you go for?
What? I went for subs and counterforcing. But I could also cross-apply some de-escalation links.
Cool.
The order.
One second.
No problem.
Oops. It's going to be K, the counter plan, the case.
Sure. Are there any cards or a dock?
No, I can. Yeah. What?
No,
Okay.
K counterplane case.
Yeah.
Sure.
Questions, comments? Anyone not ready? Cool.
Concede the permutation they were offensive, so but there is a reason to vote negative. They, when they were answering the things at the bottom, they assumed an Afro-pessimist view of the world by critiquing it. That assumes all black scholarship is Afro-pessimist. All black scholars are Afro-pessimists, which creates the very fungibility of blackness. That this comes first out of all their things because it's them being anti-black in this round and now weighs any residual offense that they have on any other flow.
Counterplan.
I took the app hostage, they graciously extended hospitality for me to snatch away the one you see and hides in the undercommons. They, when they least expect this theft is informed by one to see Moten Harney. Told me the only ethical relation to the university is the seal to become an academic feature. To my demand is the value. You should evaluate this as a black plagiarism counterpoint steals the entirety of the app without giving them credit. That's a best corruption in the academy by playing face in its fundamental beliefs of credit and performance through such contradiction. We question the very terms that debate is founded upon, and when they have to end up using the weapons, the police back charge of our offense lies behind a simple criticism of the app, but a critique of the debate space and how the app perpetuates divine politics. That means every diss subject on the counterplan A is an indict to their scholarship and independent reason rejected. B point outweighs any residual offense they have on case. I'll do so the solvency debate here. One, and say mode improves our imperative to take the app hostage, engage in criminality. How can you ethically act in a world that's structured through anti-black minds? What other conclusion could you come to in the society constantly realizes a black people runs off the sale of blacks? I mean, they have conceded a crucial uniqueness question in the world. This world is irredeemable such as criminality. The only ethical option there are a couple implications. First, all of their offense on the flow doesn't matter. All their offense proves that they are complicit in an anti-black world. All of their offense with the recreate anti-blackness are doing nothing. What turns the app is that worse criminal defense or risk of a net benefit of the counterplan is sufficient to negate. Second is the scholarship disadvantage. Insofar when any portion of the app or the speech of the app was anti-black, that means they reproduce the same whiteness into the debate space. That comes first since our pedagogy is the only thing that leads to certain. Third is the social life dissad to transfigure the stakes of this space, the stake of the seal of the one with the stake of steals, the one you see in active fugitivity and gratuitous freedom acting against these anti-black symbolic structures. We produce a sense of self-determination in a world of anti-blackness. They have conceded a second crucial uniqueness question that frames their battle of increasing polarization of political spheres, but for the answer sign of time inside debate, there's an ongoing war against the void of anti-blackness versus a call for radical unity and states that blackness is intrinsic to modernity because it's a necessary construction of the subject. It names and creates forms that compromise the monogram. That proves the necessity of the counterplans of politics. Anything else is complicit in a global system of anti-blackness that infiltrates debate and replicates the same violence in the space that outweighs a sense of critical pedagogy that parasitic on blackness and destroys any educational value of this activity on the line by line. They say we link our offense. This is a misreading of motives, a question of how debt works. We haven't identified the debt as the problem, but rather the credit of the one you see, i.e. that they've read the affirmative, so they should get the ballot. Our argument is they should vote not affirmative instead. To vote, it's not about voting negative, but rather about voting affirmative. They said perm to the counter. We should be super skeptical and two-air spin on this because you should be super skeptical on any permutation on this vote because it was just blippy. You don't know what it looks like. You don't have the jurisdiction to vote for permutations. You don't know what it looks like. You don't allow new to extrapolation. I'll answer it anyway. First is feature exclusivity. This is a stick-up. You can't negotiate the entire premise of the counter was to steal from the app without their consent with no intent to return it. We will let you steal your app back. We got away with it because we were unpredictable. We were radical indeterminacy as per one and see Moten and Harney. And any perm in this context doesn't make sense. Insofar we wouldn't be true exclusivity. They don't get a permutation. Any residual net benefits are meaningless. And the perm is a test of competition, not an advocacy. The perm is also severances. It's a voter since it turns the app into a moving target, destroys competitive equity, makes debating impossible, and destroys the space. The second is the politics of obliteration. Is that black culture is stolen, giving coherence vitality to society's culture in anti-black will define what the ontological rupture of society engages in the politics of obliteration to expose blackness, emanating and ratify a black fungibility which is impacted out on the capable as such their claim to rightfully own their app or farce trying to steal the app is a liberal attempt to boost and bolster the master's power and exterminate black existence. Next is the economy of gratitude. Just that white people try to take the when they see messages, white participation back into the politics. Don't give them a permutation. Make them go and see their authority being destroyed. Get out of the way. They must be willing to do what Moten Harney tell them to do. We are supposed to be grateful that they are willing to help Moten Harney. Don't try to help. Don't speak for them. They are ungrateful. Don't get mad because you can't make decisions in the process. Why do you need to? There's no offense on this flow. They don't get a permutation. That was largely answered above. The hold the line on two-air extrapolation. There was a whopping 5 seconds on this flow, which was just like you linking a permutation. No offense on on the flow. It's a no risk issue for me. Even, can I have your timer, please? Even if it's not, don't allow cross applications from excuse that you are don't allow. There's also no award for any of their offense that they put on. So it's a question of orientation. There's an any bad. Even if they win this, you can judge against the counter plan and put on the app. They conceded born seed. I'm going for the first piece of evidence. Correlation is not causation. Their theory doesn't make the basic scientific answers. We had deterrence when you had great power. We had reality TV when you had LC. They have to be statistical significant languages we've heard seen. Assess is impossible now. There's multiple warrants. First is appearance. Wars don't occur in vacuums. People learn, which means there's no way you can hypotest an open system because there are too many variables. Theories don't seem to work. We're using deterrence now because appeasement failed in World War II. We used appeasement because deterrence failed in World War I. The casual method system changed over time. And second is definitional elasticity, polarity, rational actions, balance of power. These are ideological concepts that can mean different things to different people. There's no way to quantify relative power, which makes testing impossible. Third is sample size. We don't have enough instances of war to form general theories. There are 100 things happening constant throughout history. Historians war, which makes testing a particular hypothesis involved. You should treat this as terminal defense to all of their arguments. They don't meet the specific basic scholarship standards for their advantage. You should ignore specific scenarios and radically powerful clauses because their epistemological grounding is a completely fabricated presumption. Is better than risk logic, but a certain magnitude of risk. Even in the sign of delta is uncertain. That means a minuscule chance advantage is outweighed by a minuscule side effects, making low probability F just like as bad or therefore good, unacceptable. The second piece of argument I'm going for is the no extinction argument that was completely conceded in the 1AR. Maybe we have provided two things. We have re-highlighted one of their cards that their authors is citing them says it would only kill at most 125 people, which is a terminal defense to their model. The second thing is that their STAR card, which is the one that they went for, and the 1AR says that it's about the U.S.-Russia conflict. They have no internal link to the extinction. The third argument is that countries rearm, which means the blueprints are still going to exist. They're just going to go back and rake the arguments. They conceded this.
Great. Can I have the timer for
Yeah.
12 seconds?
Is that right?
Great, thanks. Order is going to be case counter plan. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Indo Pac War escalates because of SLBMs and counterforcing, which means the war is inevitable because Indian overconfidence triggered by nationalism and election cycles mean war is uniquely going to happen. There are a couple of really important arguments on the case page. First of all, their top level indictment to all of my analysis saying my epistemology is wrong is built on their historical precedent argument. The intricacy of the epistemology arguments either A, lie on the theory of power leveraged by the counterplan, which I'll answer in a second, or B, were really blippy and unwarranted. Look, if you don't understand all the epistemological implications of why I can't access any of my scenarios, then don't vote on new Tuner extrapolation. Their historical analysis of how countries go to war and learn from their mistakes cannot account for new technology in an ever modernizing world that encounters new scenarios and new problems. Their defense in the form of extinction doesn't apply because Shor explicitly indicates the U.S.-Russia conflict is analogous, and even if we don't have a claim to extinction, voting negative in a post-fail world creates mass suffering for thousands, if not millions, of people, which comparatively outweighs their impacts. And the rearm was incredibly blippy out and coming out of the Gen Z. They didn't give any extrapolation of what the implications were or why it would occur. They said it in the last 3 seconds of their speech, which means you should have a very high burden of proof on voting for rearm. Now on the counterplan, even if I didn't make very many answers to the counterplan, you can cross-apply things from other other flows. Firstly, focus on the fiated counterplans, fiated context of the plan, and hold the line regarding new extrapolation of what the counterplan does. There wasn't even a text, and there wasn't extrapolation of how it holds the app hostage or how it is different from how it is different from the affirmative, which means that if coming out of the 1C was unclear to you as to how the counterplan resolved the impacts of the affirmative, then I can weigh those impacts of the app against the indicted problems, which means even if I'm using a system of credit as a debt, system of credit and debt that's logically flawed. The conceded framing arguments on the critique prove that I can weigh the consequences of the plan against them. And conceded util arguments coming out of the 18 means they comparatively outweigh the second argument I'm going for on the counter plan is the U-link. This was really mishandled because their answers don't make sense. They say that my act of credit and debt using university scholarship as a means of leveraging it for myself and claiming it as my own, but they used similar university scholarship in the case terms and rearm that they went for in the 2&R, which means they're still using it as a strategic asset that they want to use to win, which proves they linked to the critique. Additionally, they conceded the judge choice arguments in the content over form arguments, which indicates even if my use of scholarship is bad, you can strategically shed those layers of the affirmative and use the analytic process and analysis I give you regarding why Nupak War is going to escalate, which means there's no offense to the counterplan because I don't use a set of problematized assumptions. Good debate.